Hey, welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm so glad you could come back and come on the adventure that we're going to be doing today. We have a chassis adventure. So a gentleman brought me this bare chassis. I believe it's 59 Chevy. It's in that late 50s era. Anyways, we are going to be taking this thing and we're going to be making it into a short box. So I have to cut a piece of the frame out back there. We'll do lots of detail on that so that it'll help you. But the really common thing that we're going to be doing to the front end of this is we're going to be installing a Camaro subframe into this. So it's a good install for these. It's kind of old school, but I really like it. And the one reason I like it is they're pretty simple to put in, and these chassis allow you to tie in different spots into that chassis. And what that allows for is you can make this thing a lowrider if you tie in back here, or you can make it closer to stock height if you go up here. So those are just some decisions that you're gonna have to make. Anyway, I really just need to get at this thing, so that's what I'm gonna do. Our starting point right now is the chassis is now completely level. So this big old hoist is set up like a chassis jig for me. I weld stuff down to it. So this chassis is level, welded down. We have checked the square. Next step is I gotta get rid of all of the park brake cable stuff and so on, because this section of the frame right here is coming out. So I'll just blow off this exhaust hanger. Man, they made stuff good in the old days like this. Blow off these park brake lines and so on, and we'll box them up, and I'm sure he's probably gonna use the same setup again, but that's where we are. All right, a quick lowdown on what we got going on. I have the brake line in here detached. I'm just gonna leave it. It'll be hanging out the back. Customer can do what he wants with that. And I have it marked now, and I picked 2 datum lines for it. So what datum lines are, when you're doing commercial stuff, everything runs off a datum line. So it's a measure point that is positive. The reason I picked 2 datum lines on this truck is because we have this hump in the frame. So the back datum line, when I go from the very back of the frame down here, the tape measure is over top of the hump, and from the back this measures 83 1/4, and this is 92 1/2. So we're taking 9 1/4 inches out of this chassis. If I was going to take this mount off, I can just cut it out of here, and the customer can, if he wants to salvage this, he can. Most likely not going to happen. Then the other datum point that I took is dead off the front of this. I determined that this is dead square in the back of the vehicle, and after measuring everything out, depending on the points we measure, some of the holes might be different distance to the outside of the frame, but all I can find is this frame is dead square. All right, so I have this measured out both sides. 11 inches is to here, and going over the hump to here is 92 1/2 inches, and it's perfect. Then measured back are 9 1/4, and from the back it is 83 1/4. So hopefully those measurements help. I have it marked on both sides. Now I use an awl to mark these, and I try and stay on this side of the line, so you probably want to mark that. And we're gonna blow this frame out of here, and then on the front end I have the jack stands just sitting there because my big jack is not quite on the stop. So if this thing has to sit here overnight on here, it's not a big deal, but that jack rolls, so I can tie everything to that jack, cut the frame, and roll it back into place. Both sides of the frame are zipped out, and chassis sitting almost dead, still lined up, nothing really moved. So I have it on the jack there, and I put a engine crane on the front of it so I can roll this back into place. Now I just used an 045 zip disc and stayed right on that line so that, you know, I use that really fine line that the awl makes. So basically just scratched a line into the frame. So yeah, I'm just gonna take this and just touch up the edges, get rid of any of the sharpness that's on there, and roll this frame together. So with this jig that I have built as a frame jig as the hoist, it just rolls into place. So I will show you when I got that together. Okay, rolled this back and everything just lines up beautifully here. And I'm gonna have to address, I guess, what everyone's gonna be saying, because yeah, I'm new to YouTube, building videos and stuff within this last year and whatever, and I just looked at what other guys are doing. Well, there's a ton of these videos out here, and I'm doing it different than what they did, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. So I guess I am not doing it the way they did it, and the reason why is because you don't need to. So I have a background in commercial industrial stuff, manufactured a lot of big equipment. I have a lot of tickets that say that I'm allowed to weld different alloys. I've done frame repairs on stuff as high, like frames that are made out of QT100 and welded cranes. Like there's a lot of theory behind how things are built. And this old frame, I didn't look it up recently, but I've chopped a lot of frames. This frame likelihood is between 39 and 44,000 PSI tensile strength. And so the jog is maybe for confidence or lining up. I don't know. It's like you can put this frame together on jack stands and it's going to work just fine if you feel confident in lining that up yourself. Or I don't know if it's they think that you need more weld, but that theory doesn't line up. What I'm going to be tacking it together with an ER70S-6 MIG wire, and what that wire is, minimum tensile is 72, and it's supposed to be between 72 and 85 PSI as a finished weld. So we're going to be making a weld on this that's stronger than any of the material. Now I'm going to be tacking it with that, and then I'm going to be jumping to TIG ER70S-2. This wire right here, same spec, 72 to 85 for tensile strength. So doing some kind of jog and whatever in there, well, doing that, you're actually causing stress points at where the corner would meet. That's actually a notch effect, but I'm not going to get into all the welding theory. You don't need to do that. And if you don't have confidence in your weld, I mean, people, you can get this together, no problem, and hire someone who's certified to come weld it. So I don't know what year frame you're working on, whatever, but up into the 80s, most of these frames were, like, even in the 80s, there were some of the different alloys that were coming in were about 80,000. So this rod properly done in that frame is going to work as well. So just to relieve the tension and the factor of all of what I'm doing here, I have a little bit of experience doing it, so I want to give you confidence. If you are a good welder, I'm not putting a stamp on it or anything, but don't be afraid to do this without any notch effect or anything, and give it a nice little weld in there. So anyway, I am gonna tack it up now. It's clamped together. I'm going to tack it up with that MIG, and then I am going to bevel this out, put a root in with the TIG. Okay, ground the tacks out, prepped it up, threw in a small root in there and a bit of a backer weld on, and it's definitely an advantage to do these welds in position. So I haven't decided yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to put this on the rotisserie and rotate it around as I weld it. So right now this ain't gonna go anywhere, so I am going to get the front end set up and start working on getting that in here. On the chassis, I was able to get the engineered drawings to figure out where the wheel center is. We'll check that. On here, I don't know, it seems to be somebody's secret of where to line this up or fluke it or whatever, but I don't know if you can see, you got a laser shone across, dead across both centers. So we have it set up here and it is dead across. I have taken this laser, or this level, set it in here, level it up with the laser, and the chassis is leveled to back there right now. I have to check, make sure that that's level everywhere else. And if you see, I have a scribed line here, and that scribed line from wheel center right now, which is adjustable by wheel alignment, so this could vary a bit normally, but it is exactly 1 inch from the front of this hole to that scribe line. I don't know why it worked out exact, but it is exactly measured 1 inch. So that, according to what I'm finding here, is where the chassis center is. So I'll have to transfer that mark onto the chassis somewhere else where it's easier to measure. So going over to the frame, I did a laser measurement from roughly wheel center with, like, the front wheels are hanging here, right? So I have this now stitched together and I have it sitting in 3 spots, dead level, dead square. And when I took and lasered across this, my wheel center with them hanging is right here. On engineered drawings, the wheel center is exactly 3/16 of an inch from the very back of that hole on the chassis. So hopefully those key measurements help, and everyone is moving these wheel centers ahead on these things. So, and the reason is, the lower it is, because of the wheel openings are sloped, you want to go further ahead. So this is not a going to be very much lowered, so the plan is to go 1/4 to 1/2 inch ahead. We're hoping to hit close to stock height. That's what he wants for this truck, so that's what we're going to try and give him. I don't know exactly how that's going to work out, but we're going to give it a go. I think it's still going to be lower. Anyway, I am just going to get some stuff ripped apart here. You can see I got rivets knocked out, and at the end of the video I have a short on how to get those rivets out really quick. You can check that out. All right, so just a real quick note, the one flat spot here, we're level, and this is the only other real flat spot that I can find, and we are level there as well. So I'm gonna go with those measurements. All right, what I have here is from the front of this hole, just in front of where we cut this, from this very edge of it to wheel center is 77 3/8, and we checked it both sides. It's identical on both sides. And I just ran a datum to make sure that how we had cut the frame is also, or just to check, where we cut the frame is also the same length. So we measured from the very back of the frame over top of this hump, which is, excuse the measurement, but pulled the tape tight, and both of them measured 161 7/16 to wheel center, again exactly the same. So that is a good thing. We are going to be, everyone's cutting these off at about 11 inches. Know where our wheel center is going to be right here. So I transferred the marks with a laser down to here, and then our wheel center is going to be 10 inches. I have a measurement 10 inches here to our wheel center. When I was measuring or videoing this, I noticed something that didn't seem to line up. This is our center of our wheel transferred up, and those two lines are lining up not right. Well, I used a a level going across here as a straight edge, and I didn't take the thickness of that into account, and I'm glad I videoed it, otherwise I wouldn't have noticed it. So this width of that, this is actually going to be 10 and 15/16 because that's the thickness of that. So the other interesting point on here, it doesn't matter where you measure on this frame, any hole that's in it, anything. This is a factory frame. It's never been in an accident. You can see that. And the weird thing of it is nothing on it is square. So if I measure this around anywhere, any of these holes side to side and to our wheel center, as well as to the alignment bolts, as to anything, any of these marks on here, they're anywhere from 1/8 to 3/16 to one spot from the frame horns in the front back, even 1/4 inch out. So, oh well, we can move the wheel centers a bit and so on with alignment. I can't change the used part that I'm dealing with, so I'm just gonna do the best I can with it. So I know the most consistent hole is this hole right here. And so I did a reference up to here, a reference up to here, checked these. Wheel centers aren't the same. So I went off of these to make my wheel center at that 10 and 15/16. So dead lasered level across the back of these holes here to get my truest measurement on this chassis. Absolutely nothing pretty about this. I just drew a line on 11 inches back from center. I know that we have lots. I didn't want to mess around a whole bunch. Just got to get the junk out of here. This one in. So it's just time to clean up, get reset, and get that other one up. Okay, it's just mocked up into place. It's just sitting on the jack. I have it on there pretty good. I left the engine hoist hooked up just in case she kind of goes for a ride, because it is tippy. I mean, it's just balancing there right now. If I level this up to be level with the rest of the frame, if you take a look right at present time, this has to come back 9.5 inches yet. And it also definitely has to go up. If we did it like this, we'd be definitely riding 4-wheel drive, I think. So the goal is going to be, I think I'm gonna make the top of this frame very close to the top of this frame. And I don't want to mess with the suspension component there. So what I'm gonna do is level this all up, and I am going to draw a line all the way around this, and I'm gonna do some cutting on it. I just got to figure out exactly what I'm gonna do, because I think I'm gonna use the material, like I'll probably slice it however it is, bend it up out of the way, however, not exactly sure yet. We'll see once I get some of this lopped off. And then I will fold this into the frame to mold it in. I don't want overlapping stuff, but we're probably potentially going to use the part that we took out of the back to box this in, because I have some nice short pieces that I conveniently took out of the back. So if you look, it's not sitting in here dead straight, obviously, but you can see that the Camaro frame is definitely not the same width. So the outside is hanging out a long ways. The inside, well, she's pretty close. Catching you up, I kind of just was giving her and not catching up. So I apologize, but I'll show you where we are. So the chassis is dead level. The only spot that was dead level with the other, is up in that front area there. And that was dead level to this bottom area. So our measurements on both sides are deadly the same. I don't know if I cut on the wrong side of line for something, whatever, but I have it really tight here, which I'm gonna have to open that up anyway to put a root in. And this one here, I ended up having a gap, and I just kicked the hammer on the floor. So not a big deal. So the measurement from here is exactly 18.5 to this set datum at the front end that I did, and then it's 10 and 15/16 up there. And what that did is it moved the axle the center line of the axle on this a 1/2 inch ahead. Now, the customer told me that he would like me to decide how far ahead that went. Well, I looked at the pictures, all the pictures of 59 Chevy that I could find, and even at stock height, the wheels did look a little bit off skew. So I just picked a 1/2 inch. I was gonna go 1/4 inch, but I picked a 1/2 inch. And we don't know the exact ride height this is, so hopefully when he gets his build done, I get to look at this thing again, and we'll be able to give you the final measurements for that. Why I chose right here is I first of all squared everything up, made sure it's the same side to side where I cut the frame off, and I chose to go as close to this junk weld that I could grind off because those welds are horrible. And we're gonna weld to that. He doesn't want us to address the welds on the rest of the front of the chassis, so I'm not. But I chose to do this notch in here and make it so that when this gets bent over, so I'm gonna heat this up. I have it notched top and bottom, and I've ground out the inside, so we got it nice and clean. This piece here is going to get folded in, and it will be deadly on the frame for a nice weld. Now, normally I don't like lap welding stuff, but I'm gonna leave that in there. I don't care. It's just extra time. And then I'm going to take and box this up to here. I don't know what he's gonna do with this cross member. I believe this, well, I know this is getting to be an LS swap. Now, the neat thing that worked out is these frame rails from the cross member ahead, they actually taper up. And this chassis tapers down, and where I tied it in, I mean, I didn't make this cut square. I'm gonna be squaring it a bit more and whatever. This taper here is gonna land where this is gonna be perfect on the bottom of here. So I'm not sure, I might slice this out and bend this piece of frame rail up to match properly up here. So that's where I'm at. I have it tacked in place in 2 spots, right there, right there. It is sitting on my jack. I have the safety on here. The chain is loose, but if anything went awry, I could move it. And how I am adjusting this level right here is I have a jack on the steering right there to raise and lower to make it level. And I'm not using the hydraulic part of it. I was just using the screw part of it. But this thing now is set up. So I have to admit, usually when I'm doing chassis work, it's something like shortening something up or whatever, or building a new chassis, whatever. And so grafting this Firebird, Camaro, whatever front end it is, I'd love to know if other guys have the same issues where nothing is square on this thing. And, or was this one just made on Friday? Who knows, could be. So everything, wheelbase is kind of seriously sweet, exact to a couple of the holes and to our bars here. And what I've done now is I took the hot wrench and told this where to move, and I did the same on the bottom. And on the other side, you can see what I did is I actually took the old frame rail that we cut out of the back while we shortened it. You could have easily used a piece from up here, and I sliced it off so it lines up nice with this. And I did that on the same as well, and then we're gonna have to figure out what we're gonna do when we have this rolled over to deal with that. But this thing's gonna be, now it's tacked together. It ain't moving anywhere. And I'm gonna throw it on the rotisserie so that I can do all the welds in the flat position. I just can, so I'm gonna, and I'd rather do that knowing my welds are all penetrated beautifully and beautiful, so that's the deal. Okay, up on the rotisserie, done a bunch of the root welds. And if you notice, I did not level the rotisserie because I just don't want to take that time to make new jigs and stuff. I could easily bolt it on. As well, when I'm welding on this, I mean, it can't go anywhere the way it's tacked up and everything, but I do like to have a support. So the engine crane is doing dual purpose. This thing's heavy to rotate because it isn't the weight isn't distributed properly on this, but I didn't want to take the time to make those brackets. So saving some time and support. So right now I have some of the stuff welded out. It's turning out really quite nice. And in the back here, I just, so putting it up here allows me to make really nice root welds. And so I can V it out and I can throw a root all the way through. So there's a root there. This is just a back weld. I'm gonna ground the sound material for that, but in the flats where it's easy, I just am running a root in. So the back part was pretty straightforward. So this obviously is off the fixture. It's sitting here ready to be picked up unless he wants something else done with it. But the back end, just really straightforward. Turned out really, really nice. No issues. It's just a nice frame shortened job. So, yeah. The front end, on the other hand, I have welded these on with somebody else having it all set up, me coming and welding. And if someone is not confident with their welds, that's probably what they should do. A compromise needed to be made in every which way. So I split the difference on everything, but literally when I'm doing something like this, even in the commercial industrial world, you're looking at, you know, you want to be within a 16th. Well, there was a 1/4 inch difference on a lot of this stuff. Actually, I want to show you something. So this is just an example of differences. So this has no wiggle. I got it like seriously tight. So like the frames aren't the same width side to side. The front end is completely different. There was only one spot on this chassis that was level to both the backs that I cut off that were level. So if you're really particular, this is gonna drive you nuts. It did drive me nuts, actually. I had the laser across, well, multiple lasers across this thing every which way, and I just had to split differences, and so it's gotta be figured out with alignment. The welding on it, like, I mean, it went just beautifully smooth, and you can see that this one here was right against this weld, and this one over here is behind it. I mean, but it turned out like it's a nice little swap to do. I think it turned out really quite nice. It's a nice transition. So the thing with welding, you always want to make sure that you're not creating notches, and you're looking for a 3-to-1 transition. So if you're making a transition for 3 inches, you want 1 inch of transition. So like, I mean, we are better than that. So structurally, I mean, this is a great transition, and it worked out just beautiful. So room to get that bolt out of the suspension, everything. And if you look at this thing, I don't have room to stand back. I got too much junk in here, but she is got quite a rake to it. So I think with the engine in, everything, it's still going to be riding pretty high. Hey, thanks so much for joining me on this chassis. I'm hoping that I let some of the secrets out of the bag that seem to be so secret, and I don't know why they're secret. Maybe because you have to split differences on that and people might be embarrassed. Well, wheel alignments can do a whole bunch, and I'm hoping, well, it will on this, as well as there's so many aftermarket parts available for these front clips. So the control arms, correct steering, geometry, stuff like that. So if he chooses to go with tubular control arms, whatever, you can get drop spindles, everything. So this is it's actually a good install to do on an older truck like this. Other people use Chevelles, whatever. If anyone has a better preference to a front end to use, yeah, just throw it in the comments. And as well, if you have any questions about any of the builds that we got going on, or this one, just throw it in the comments of those videos. I'll do my best. My wife helps as well. We'll do our best to get back to you on any questions that need to be addressed. And if you don't mind, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.